So my topic for today, as Osaka-san mentioned, is image, text, and audio inversions, conversions, and contortions in epiglottis, which is this piece for ensemble and two voices and electronics, which I wrote 2013-2014. So this was commissioned by a group based in Chicago called Phonema Consort. So a piece for two sopranos, trio, live electronics, video, and also there's a staging element, a theater element involved. Now, before composing this piece, I had written or provided music for two films made by the Croatian filmmaker and artist Damir Očko. And these were featured on an exhibition in Paris at the Palais de Tokyo called The Kingdom of Glottis. And so the second of these films, Spring, consisted of a few basic elements. It wasn't a traditional narrative film. So images of the Stromboli volcano in Italy erupting, images of a contortionist, a fire eater, a tightrope walker, so various performers placing their bodies under difficult conditions, and a set of poems recited by the filmmaker, by Damir himself, and my music. And so the title Spring, it's not like the season, haru. It's not primavera. It's more like a spring coil, like matter under pressure, something about to burst. And so these are some of the themes that are explored, both in the video and in the text. So obviously with the volcano, Kazan, material erupting, lava erupting, matter under pressure, bodies being contorted. There's much reference to resonance in the poetry, in particular. And as the title of the exhibition, The Kingdom of Glottis, implies, exploring the physicality of the vocal apparatus, of the lungs, the larynx, and so on. Particularly in the poetry, this is a theme. And the theme of schizophrenia. So in the two of the poems that are set in this piece, schizophrenia is a theme, portraying madness. So my intention in this project was to basically invert the process, to make a kind of setting of the film, but not to respond to the images on just a surface level, and also not to respond to the poetry on just a kind of immediate reaction, on an instinct level, but rather to use the images, both still and moving, as a kind of raw material. And so the first step was using a program called PhotoSounder to perform a kind of spectral analysis of several of the images derived from the film. So this is a sort of image to text, image to sound, sound to image processing program. And so taking images of both the Stromboli volcano, the Contortionist, and the fire eater, converting visual spectral data into audio spectral data, and producing an analysis, and using the spectral analysis both to generate the audio for the electronics and also the harmonic material used in the instrument and vocal parts. So this is just a screenshot of the PhotoSounder interface. The top image is of the one of the original images from the film loaded into the program with some processing, some transformation made, color inversion, and so forth. And on the bottom, this is after exporting an audio file based on the analysis of this visual data, entering this back into the program and producing both the spectrogram on top and the visual representation on the bottom. And in the program, one can adjust both the duration of the file, the bandwidth, perform masking and inversion, and there are several other features, several other processes one can apply. So here's an example. So here's just an image of the volcano at rest, and on the bottom is the spectral analysis, and one possible sounding result. Filtered noise, really predictable. Here's one of the Contortionists. Much shorter duration, larger bandwidth. And the fire eater. Narrower bandwidth, more resonant filter. So that was one step. Now, given that this was derived from a video, wasn't purely interested in capturing the image data, but also the images in motion. And so, and also, in the interest of controlling the dynamic transformations taking place within the voices and the instruments, I wanted to also derive some cues or some trajectories from the video itself. So I had transcribed the movement of the Contortionist into what I called Gestalten, or shapes, forms. Sort of models or abstractions, and paired different sets of physical parameters for each of the instruments to these Gestalten. And so whatever would be placed on the x and the y-axis would change. And this would control the flux element, this would control the dynamic processes, the changes in the sound over time. So here are just a few examples of the transcribed movements.
Frosts.
You can hear some of the narration as well.
Welcome, cracks and ruptures. Welcome, what is under your weight. That hidden shape of oppression. Pink, bloodless, grey of what once were the moves relying only on impulses. Blow more and more fiercely, this balloon, this flesh, this monstrous collection of veins, of air, of expanded caves, of emptiness, of something else too. Vibrant in tension and on the edge of bursting, feigning life, yet completely on the other side.
And so on. So here are just a few sketches of the Gestalten that I had used. Again, mapping different sets of musical parameters to each, and varying those parameters, varying the direction also for each of these shapes. These are just rough sketches. And here are the various physical parameters. So for the flute, for the cello and contrabass. Now, attack types, just the means by which these various physical parameters are articulated, so as isolated points, as collections of points, as steady state actions, or as pulsated legato actions. And here's just a score example. So this is from the first of 3 sections of the piece, main sections of the piece. And particularly, well, in the flute, cello, and contrabass parts, you can see some of these transformations taking place. So, for example, changes in bow position, pressure in the strings, changes in vibrato, speed, pressure, air pressure in the flute, and different types of articulation. So as single points, granular, steady state, and so on. The exclamation point, this is the name of the first movement, which we'll see here. The title derives from the fact that there are many exclamation points in the poem, which is set in this first section. So, basic structure of the piece: 3 principal movements with audio-visual interludes in between. Now, the second movement, Meat Puppet, involves staging. So on the premiere performance by the Phonema Consort, the first and third movements were performed, but for reasons of logistics, the second movement has not yet been premiered. So the ones in bold have already been documented. This piece has been performed so once in Chicago by Phonema Consort, and then once later in 2014 at ICMC in Athens by the Paxos Ensemble. In both cases, just the first and third movements for similar logistical issues. So just play a couple of excerpts from the premiere performance. And apologies, the video is a bit cut off, but I think you'll get the idea. in the third movement, it just gets, the piece just gets faster and faster, and the two singers are exchanging two texts, and at a certain point it just becomes completely unintelligible. So what it really reduces to is just the physicality of producing utterances. So becoming more, let's say, in tune with the vocal apparatus itself, and meaning semantics are cast aside. Now, the second movement has not yet been performed, but this is just some of the audio and visual from the second movement, with narration of both the narrator you hear in the original video and narration provided by the filmmaker, Damir Rochko. I should mention the video, which I made, consists obviously of images deriving from the original piece Spring, as well as some of the output from PhotoSounder and other processing of the original footage. So that concludes the presentation. For further information, my website, the website of the music program at ICLA of Yamanashi Gakuin Daigaku, email. This is unrelated to the presentation, but related to ICLA. So at the end of October, 29th of October, there will be a Music and the Brain Symposium, the second thus far. Some of these names you probably recognize. Pavlos Antoniadis is a pianist and researcher visiting from Strasbourg, in France, who will be presenting a paper and giving a 1-hour concert. So this will be an event consisting of paper session, performances, installations, and so on. So if you are available that day, please do stop by. So thank you very much for that, and if there are any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question for the PhotoSounder. I think that's kind of some simplification techniques use spectral program to convert image to sound. So that means it's very straightforward that you transform the photo to sound without any interpretation of the music meaning or anything else.
Right. So it was. I mean, there were some dimensions that were altered. So be it the duration, the bandwidth, various filters that could be applied, some drawn in. And then various changes to the visuals or orientation, also color inversion and this sort of thing. In terms of any sort of deeper meaning, that was precisely what I was trying to avoid, was trying to interpret the content of each, and really going for just the material. The content, of course, I was addressing on some level the themes of contortion, of compression, of matter under pressure, of tension, and so forth. But I wanted that to kind of operate on a more global level, and not just pay attention to local details too much and react to them. In terms of, let's say, a more indirect application, as I mentioned, obviously you could hear some of this output in the electronics, but also I was applying this to generating some harmonic content in the instruments, just further manipulating the files and then using open music, just producing an F-stiff analysis and yeah, generating some harmonic progressions from that.
You have lots of instrument arrangement for that. If only for the video to, image to some application task, it's possible to generate anything with harmonic series distribution, or just only the inharmonic can be generated from one photo. Noisy sound. That's the only thing we can get it come out from the software.
It is actually possible to also generate more harmonic material. One can also approximate to the nearest semitone. There are various other features in the program, various types of output that one can produce. It is a little bit, just in terms of interpreting color values as spectral data, it's maybe a bit simplistic in that regard. But I was tending anyway towards kind of more high noise content material. And this also allowed one, by adjusting the bandwidth, to produce output that could apply to different registers, so registers of the instruments, the voices, and so on, so I could control more precisely in what frequency ranges the PhotoSounder output fell.
So I would suppose the software you can use like similar to FN synthesizer, like harmonicity ratios and control the harmonicity.
Right. That's also possible.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I have one question. This piece is of very large scale, including many elements such as video and instrumental. And one trifle, it's not trifle, but one portion I would like to ask. It includes the problem of sonification, including for both image to sound, but also video to sound. And I understand if you talk about the physical motion of Contortionist, because it has the temporal structure in common. So you can imitate the same in common, or you can interest in using, or you can emphasize. But in image, it doesn't have any temporal structure. So if you show the structure of a spectrum, I understand the spectral feature, but I didn't understand how you design the temporal structure from the image. It doesn't have any. So one can be said that you can transpose, or in some way or other you correspond some spatial information to temporal structure. But how did you do that? In this example, now I'm talking about the general things.
So this is why I took two different approaches to still versus motion. And so really the images were just being read for sort of static spectral content, and then deriving these that I called Gestalten was a means of trying to capture the motion, to capture the temporal structure of these different performers as something independent of these spectral analyses. One of the problems, of course, in the program is that, okay, just in terms of visual to audio mapping, is that there is a limitation of reading images left to right, which is not how typically we scan still images. However, given that these were derived from a video, and these images would be scanned by a camera, often in a horizontal direction, it was actually sort of closer to the origin, closer to the way these images were actually being portrayed in the film. I don't know if I fully answered your question or partially answered your question, but
Is scanning is one solution, you say?
well, this is a limitation of the program that if one is attempting to convert the way that we scan images visually to the way that we are listening to sounds linearly, it's a bit of a reductive kind of mapping. But since these were not really still images in the original, but were being scanned by a camera, I guess that is sort of the analogy. It doesn't fully solve the problem, but it's maybe a bit of an excuse.
Thank you. One more question, very simple to answer probably. You said you were using the surface level structure of image rather than very things in detail, deep in perception, like feeling, emotion, but not that level, but the very surface level of image. And my question is, are you content with that, or because of the technical limitation, you adopt that? I don't know if the answer is either one of two, somewhere in between, but so my question is, very positively, are you using the low-level, surface-level structure, or not necessarily, not really?
What I said was actually the opposite, that I was trying to avoid a kind of surface-level reading. At the same time, and that partially means just reacting to whatever might be immediately presented to the viewer. And the same with the poetry, not trying to capture in the text setting just each image that is presented in the text, but rather instead of just analyzing for content of the video, just treating it as material. And so the video, the audio, the material for the instruments all derives from more or less the same source. And so trying to create some level of, maybe not coherence, but collapsing the different media, collapsing the instruments, electronic sounds, video, into one kind of kernel. So the sense that they have a certain commonality that's more than just sort of surface resemblance, but is actually one is actually employing the visual material, analyzing the visual material, and expressing it through the audio and through the instrumental writing.
So the answer to my question is yes, it's a really rather positive sense you're using surface level instead.
Right, I wouldn't call it exactly surface level. Maybe it is surface level in terms of the let's say image content from the visuals, but not surface level in the compositional process of, okay, I see this contortionist, and let's just create some gesture in the music that sounds like contortion, or that sounds like a tightrope, or something like this, or have a a jittery sound in the voice because someone is on a tightrope, or something that's sort of immediate and impulsive like this. But trying to have a greater reservoir of materials and reservoir of relations between the visual and the audio.
The basic understanding that I am based upon might be wrong, probably.
I think it's just a different understanding of surface, perhaps.
Thank you very much. We would like to move to the next speaker. Thank you very much.